thank you very much for the presenters. On this last presentation from Fitman, the two examples you have given, Whirlpool and the other one, I simply don't see where cloud kicks in. I mean, give us a story about why is Whirlpool using cloud technologies, whatever they may be. You have to explain that.
So we are talking about not a huge amount of data, but with some significant amount of data. You also have a lot of services running in this kind of platforms and in this kind of environments, and we need to have reliable services. You have to guarantee that services are always on. So you have to guarantee that you have an environment, as you said in your presentation, that is always available. That even if your data center is down, you have a backup solution, and that the services are running, and that they can collect the information and can provide the information, the right information to the right people. So that's why we think that we will reuse some of the cloud characteristics we have been talking, mostly. Of course, that we also have some data mining on top of it, so maybe we can use some MapReduce technologies and so on to do that. Not sure about it yet, but it is also a possibility.
I think so.
That's what I don't understand.
That's a good question, and it's a question that's in the table right now within the project. And because we would like to use the capability projects from the PPP, and that means that we have to outsource most of the information, most of the services to that particular environment, infrastructure. And we have exactly that question right now being discussed in the project. There are some partners. We have Augusta, which they build helicopters, and Volkswagen also. And Volkswagen is one of the partners that clearly say there's no information outside of our company. So yes, we will build our own cloud. It's a private cloud. It will be built on OpenStack, but it's our own. We are not going to put it out. We will reuse the generic enablers if we can install it here. So we will not reuse any of the infrastructure already available. But yes, that's one of the aspects related with security, with trust and privacy and so on, of course.
If I may,
but I think that the technology and the concepts apply in the same way, right?
I would like to add to this privacy issue. And maybe it would also be an interesting question for you, because it's your customers will most likely come every day to you with that. In Switzerland, there is it's called Swiss Topo, a website, a portal, where you can get all topographical data from Switzerland. There was a bill, 3, 4, 5 years ago, they went through the parliament that decided that all topological data about Switzerland that the government was owning has to be publicly available, not for free, but at least available, right? So from one day to the other, this Swiss Topo, it's called, this organization in the Swiss federal government, had this problem that they had to release all this data and make it publicly available. So they went to their IT department and were saying, look, we have all this data, it has to become publicly available, can you help us? And the guys in the IT department were saying, well, then we need to buy new infrastructure, we need to go through we need to build all of this, we need to set it up and all these sorts of things, right? And that takes us 3 years. The guys went to Amazon as a result. Really. So if you go to Swiss Topos, it's a website, you can go, you can get all topological data from the Swiss federal government, and all the data is now in Amazon. So now you can say topological data that is supposed to be public is not a critical something, right? But still. So, and the interesting part is, and I was just talking to Mrs. Wittmer, which was the legal counselor that accompanied the Swiss government when they started negotiating with Amazon. Because of course the first issue that they had when they came up with this was can we go with Amazon? It's not just the data, there will be also other things, it's critically connected to what we are doing and so forth. There was lots of issues. And then this lady, which was the main contact, it's a kind of like advocates, a legal service company, right? Whatever you may call lawyers at the end. She said in a talk, and I can share the slides with you, that essentially this whole thing about privacy in the public cloud and whatsoever is much, much, much less critical as you would believe it. much less. She was saying, Amazon, for instance, they run data centers in Ireland and offer you compliance with Swiss law. They can implement this. They have the mechanisms in place.
You can do it better.
Exactly. So this whole thing about, my data is in the I still hear you, yeah? This whole thing about the state and is my data is in the public cloud, or what, that's more of a kind of like, FUD, as we say, right? She also said, for instance, they were negotiating. Of course, like Amazon's a big company, right? But still, Amazon was willing to negotiate with the Swiss government. Of course, Swiss government is kind of like, it's not the SME who comes, but they were negotiating. They were negotiating, privacy contracts dedicated to that. So, Rui, before I give it to you, I would just like to hear the opinion of this speaker, because I think that's definitively something that Lunar Cloud is dealing with day by day. And then, Rui, here's the next one, okay?
No, actually, on a conference I was participating a few weeks ago, I spoke about legislation and data privacy. There is something that, there is a law called Patriot Act in the US, which puts data, even European data, hosted in Ireland or European countries. But if the provider is a US company or a subsidiary of a US company, the government has the right to ask for the provider to give customer information without the customer knowing about that. So this conflicts with the Data Privacy Acts from Europe. The customer must know if his data is being released. So we might think, let's go with an European provider instead of going with a US provider so that we are out of the Patriot Act. That's true. But the reverse is also true, meaning that the European governments, and in this case there are different legislations, also have access to customer information if the provider is European. So whilst Patriot Act is something that gives the US government the power to get data and get information from customers wherever they are in the world, if they are provided through American companies, European governments also have the same kind of power, Asian governments also have the same kind of power, and so on and so on. So data privacy, I agree with you, is is a concern, but you should be a lot more concerned if your data is really critical. If you are a terrorist or something like that, then you should be concerned, because this is the kind of this is to address this kind of concern.
First,
of course, companies, they might have critical information. They might be afraid of someone getting access to their industrial knowledge, but then it all comes to encryption and all kinds of security mechanisms that the technology allows, and it shouldn't determine which kind of provider or which geography we choose to put our data in. That's basically my view on that.
Rui, and then Rui, okay.
This is actually for 3 persons on the panel, including Diogo that was just dropped there. All this cloud stuff is very foggy for me at this moment. We've been talking about cloud this, cloud that, and then you gave a perfectly great example. I just go to EC2 and I buy it, right? So Ricardo is a nice project, so nice that we tried to figure out what cloud was for him, and he said, well, basically we are going just to mount our own data center, and we are going to use cloud technologies, and that's all the research in cloud that we are going to have. So where do we have research in cloud when we talk about all these, IoTization of the information, getting all the data into a data center? I mean, now cloud is a tool, right? What are we doing of new?
Well, pick up. Okay.
It is true that infrastructure as a service has become a commodity, and there's a go-to shop like Amazon that you can easily pick up. But if we progress towards platform as a service and to have our middlewares, our generic enablers, whatever, being built and having less concerns about running software, we already don't care about running hardware. Now we want to do not care about running software. And here, you don't have a go-to shop. There are too many shops. So there is a lot of space to do research and to incorporate new solutions, new techniques that haven't even been thought about it. The existing ones do not serve the purposes. I was just running this week a project with PhD students on a platform as a service from Google App Engine. And it's amazing how many things you cannot do. So there is a lot of space to progress. I really believe that infrastructure as a service is a dead end by now. It's a retail business where margins are very small. There is not too much to do there. Actually, I believe there's nothing to do there. But on the other side, platform as a service has a lot of strong points and a lot of space to grow up on. But that's my opinion.
The reasons why I choose not to move some data into the cloud, these are basically decisions that are that can be based on technical reasons, although these technical reasons probably today do not play any more significant role. Then there is certainly the part of the economic reasons, and this relates, you mentioned that when you have the fear that your data is being spied for industrial reasons, for whoever, I mean, there are always rumors and conspiracy theories that governments do not only protect their national security, but actually spy also for their home industries. And certainly the third one, which is the case that I was presenting yesterday, for regulator and legal reasons not to move data outside of your control or outside of whatever defines the scope of where the data need or must reside. So at the end of the day, I think the technology has to follow these requirements, right? And not the other way around, that we design or we try to bend, let's say, the requirements in order to fit the technology that we have built. It's a bit similar to the tension that exists between artists, designers, and technologists when you design a product. I mean, there you have the say, function follows form or form follows function, right? There is a big tension there about who has actually the final word when a product is thrown into the market. Right?
Maybe again, do you have a comment? Just to connect this to you, I mean, what I always find interesting in this discussion is, and you saw that from this analyst report from Deutsche Telekom, where you have 2.6 million SAP users that already use hosted systems. Yeah, but there were 2.6 million SAP users.
SAP?
Also, there were, I think, 3 million SMEs and 2.4 million SAP users. Yeah? 2.4 million SAP users, which already consume their SAP system out of a Deutsche Telekom hosted center. So, now question is, what is cloud computing? But if you say everything that runs not on my computer is cloud, then this is already cloud computing. Why does no one discuss privacy issues when they use a hosted system from SAP?
No, I mean, Thomas, I understand there are requirements that have to be fulfilled. Somebody does an analysis of these requirements and says yes or no to a decision, and this is a business decision which considers this requirement. I mean, all these guys made the perfect choice, perhaps, and put their business onto this cloud. That's fine, but they have done this analysis. At least I assume so.
Okay, if I can take on that. If we analyze only the technology, there's absolutely no reason for us to choose to place our information in a certain region or a certain country other than the quality of connectivity. So what we want is information to be easily and quickly accessible by ourselves or by our customers. So in an ideal world, that would be the only thing to worry about. Can I put my data, I want my data close to me because it's faster, then I'll put it in Europe and I'll not put it in US. However, there are other reasons that make people choose where to locate the data. One is cultural. Europe is a lot more fragmented than the US culturally, in terms of languages, of course, in terms of geographies. Some currencies still exist, Europe is a collection of countries, and many people still believe that placing their data inside their country is the best choice. It could not be. The third one, which is usually what businesses think more about, is legal reasons. Certain kinds of data need to be, for legal reasons, within the country borders. And in which case, sometimes it is not clear if we choose a cloud computing provider, if they can deliver on that. But it's possible. So that's why we chose to have smaller data centers in many different countries rather than a big data center in Ireland, because we allow more choices for our customers. A French customer can put their data in France. A Spanish customer cannot, but a Portuguese customer can, and so on. So we believe that to address these legal barriers, we need to have more data centers. And but because some governments require that, for example, information regarding government, regarding health, regarding the banking industry, insurance industry, stays within country borders. So many times, if you are in a business that deals with this kind of data, then you need to worry about data locality a lot, and most of the times it means putting data inside your country and making sure that your provider commits to it, or you build your own private cloud.
The Cape
concept
University.
is 50 years old or 40 years old. I don't remember the name, but the time that we consider that cloud computing was invented, I think is less clear.
No. Let me finish this one. So they have created this elastic IP, which gave birth to the elastic cloud computing, and they were hired by Amazon back in 2002. So Chris deployed the technology basically already in Cape Town after he started the first ISP in South Africa, and he sold it to UNet, which was trying to dominate the entire planet. And then he sought how can an ISP become more of a service provider for the corporations and so on and so forth, which many do that. I think your example of SAP is exemplary as such. And then since they didn't have enough IP addressing in South Africa, they called it elastic IP. So they did not have enough routable IP addresses. So they were using the same routable IP address for each instance. And then when they open a new instance, they use that same IP address and so on and so forth. So for your research, maybe you should move to V6. You'll have a far better approach to cloud computing. I know it's not going to be moving around the world because you need to have all the data centers to do that. So this is an area we should maybe go into. And I think we'll have a bit of work in this area. As to place and so on and so forth, there is a myth, but we have to address the myth. That's the problem. Yeah. It's not really technology, it's just a myth, but you have to address it. So you have to give the location of the center for the critical information. You cannot go around that one. I met a mayor and he said, I don't want to have my data outside of my stuff. So we looked at his firewall. He doesn't have a firewall. So
his data is...
It's useless. Give it to Telefonica or give it to whomever. They'll do a better job for yourself. So it's ignorance.
Okay, so we have to close very soon. Maybe one more short question. If someone has an interest. Okay, then I would like, of course, the panelists and the speakers, especially also Diogo, for joining so spontaneously. Yeah.